Oh gosh, darn it. That is not what I want. Close. Sorry, y'all. Figuring this out as we go. Okay. Coffee and cranking. Let's see if we can get this to work. All right, Hazel is going to help me moderate, hopefully. Go ahead and close out of this, Hazel. I understand that, but I need you to. Good morning, everyone. We are attempting coffee and cranking today. Can you hear me on there? All right. So Hazel's gonna hopefully be able to ask me questions as we go that are put in the chat. Can you no, you gotta probably minimize that to be able to see chat, Hazel. Thank you. If there's a chat, you will probably see it over here. Okay. All right, and then we will figure this out as we go. You can still hear me pretty good? Yeah. Oops, did I just mute that? Okay. All right. Join the conversation. Interact with the creator. Did it do it? Open panel. I think this is the open panel. If anybody's here, can somebody type something in for me? I don't know if anybody's actually here because this was. 8 people. There's 8 people. What?
Oh, yeah.
Don't. What does that say? Managing support. Okay, close.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, people are saying hi. Okay, you're gonna help me read stuff, okay?
Hello.
Hello, hello. Can everybody see my machine pretty good? I think that's pretty close to what I have in my videos. I have coffee. We're gonna crank. This is in my, oh, you can't see it very good. My Monster mug, Monster Pottery. They're local to us here in Maryland. This is a circular sock knitting machine. If you don't know what that is, it essentially helps you knit in the round, but you can also knit flat too. So, oops, I've had my machine since about 2020, maybe 21.
Amanda said, hi, good afternoon from Scotland.
Oh my gosh, hello. They can see fine. Okay, so what I figured I would do, and I've done this many times on my videos for this, is I just am going to crank a hung hem sock. Okay, don't be too loud. We're going to do a hung hem sock. And so we're also going to be using some Patton's Croy yarn. Now, I've already changed my tension to be 2 stitches looser than normal because this Patton's Croy is a little thicker than the standard average sock yarn. It's a little bit thicker. So, but that's the yarn my husband really loves for his socks, and I make them really, really tall. So.
Hi.
Oh, that is for you. Yeah. You're funny. Okay. So I'm going to be pretty much starting from the beginning here. This is a 64 stitch cylinder, and this is an Erlbacher Gearhart Speedster machine. So the ratio is 1:1. So every crank around with my handle is 1 full rotation. So, see, okay. This is your bonnet. I have a split ring bonnet. Not everybody likes those. I have other bonnets also. That is one of my most watched videos, I have to say, where the rings that hold your bonnet are not metal. This is just using the yarn from the bonnet. And that is a good technique because you're learning how to make that picot edge. And you can do that on the top of a lot of your socks. 11 people. Woohoo! Hello, everyone. Good morning. Okay. So this is an Addy pick tool, and this comes with the Gearhart machine. I am going to apologize right from the start here. I don't know why I'm feeling nervous. Nobody's here. It's just me and my kid. I mean, people are here watching, and I think that's probably what it is. I've demoed a few times in person, and every time my hands are like, ooh, jittery. It's just kind of silly. I've done this, I don't know how many times, but you know, magic of editing. So I hung my first ring on my first stitch. This is my, I just explained half marks in a previous video. This is my half mark, and this is 3 o'clock. So 12, 3, 6, and 9 is over here. And so this first stitch is where I usually try to start and stop because I can remember what I'm doing. So I'm going to move my yarn carrier forward. I also have a split yarn carrier on my machine. I have the original yarn carrier that came with it, but if you mess up, sometimes you have to cut your yarn, and people don't always.
We have 0 expectations.
Oh, thank you. That's Miss Valerie. You remember Miss Valerie?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, this is the buckle. I'm putting this on my machine so then I can hang my weights. I have all of my weights in a koozie because it keeps them all together. So I'm hanging every weight with this. I'm going to put some scrap yarn, some waste yarn on, and that's how I start my project, by putting that on. So I have the split yarn carrier, like I said, so it makes it real easy to pop that in there, hold the tail, crank around. You can buy clips like these and hold your tails in. I don't really use them very much. I actually bought them because I just acquired a flatbed knitting machine and I needed some clips. So I'm going to finish hanging because you can't crank all the way around because the needles are down in the cylinder bed. So if people have questions, this is why I wanted to do the live chat so people could ask questions and I could answer live. I felt like that would be, I don't know, easier. I thought about doing a video and then doing a live premiere, but then I can't really change the video. The video is what it is. This, if we wanted to change it up and not do this sock, I could change it up, or I could, you know, whatever. I just figured this first video, I'm just going to do the norm of what I like to do. This is 65-pound fishing line.
Said, I don't currently have a desire to machine knit, but I love these videos. It's like how it's made.
It is. We love that show, don't we? Okay, so this is 65-pound fishing line. I bought it on Amazon. This is what I use for ravel cord. If you're familiar with flatbed knitting machines, a lot of flatbed knitting machines use ravel cord, so you can unravel your project from the waste yarn without having to cut your waste yarn. This is how I can reuse my waste yarn all the time.
They said, what is the purpose of a bonnet?
Oh, of a bonnet? So the bonnet, you have to have a bonnet or something to start your project. And there's different kinds of bonnets. There's flat ones, but mine are all in the round. I have one that's flat that was gifted to me. But the bonnet, it starts your yarn, and it's how you clip on the downward weight that you need, because you have to have downward pressure pulling down on your project at all times. That ensues that the needles will knit. If you don't have any pressure, it's real loose. It's not going to have the pull down to knit, and you need to have that. So that's how you are able to attach your clip and your weights. If you don't have something to start like a bonnet, it's really hard to have that downward pressure to start your project, or to knit at all, because you really, it's a necessity for these machines. Okay, so I've put my fishing line on to start the first needle, and I'm going to do one full rotation, and it's going to close on the 64th needle. Okay, so yeah, it's like casting on your project, right? You need to cast on, and if you're doing a provisional cast on with hand knitting, it's kind of like that. You need something to attach it to. All right, so I'm going to tuck the tails in, and now I'm going to start my project yarn, and it's going to start with needle number 1. These machines have, so not all the machines, if you acquire an older one, I don't think they all have a counter, but if you acquire a new one from Erlbacher, they all have a counter with them. So my yarn is going between needle 64 and needle 1, and it's going to catch in that first hook, and I'm just going to hold these tails and crank around, and I do a 40 row hung hem. So meaning I'm going to knit 40 rows, and then I'm going to hang this first row. So you need to have a good contrast between your waste yarn and your project yarn. So let's crank 40 rows. There's many different kinds of selvage edges and tops to socks. My husband really prefers the hung hem, so that's just what I continue to make.
They said, why did you choose fishing line? And what
Oh, the fishing line is, it's mercerized, so you can pull it out from your project really easily. I know some people that use cotton yarn. I find that doesn't pull out as easy. And the weight of it was 65 pound. Did I say mercerized? I'm not quite sure that was the right word, but this is the brand I bought. Okay. And it's 65 pound. So that's the yarn I use. All right, let's continue. We're at 32. We're going to do 40. All right, so I've done 40 on my counter. I'm going to start hanging here so I can crank all the way around before my V-cam starts to hit these needles. So this is your V-cam. This is what makes your needle butts go up and back down. This is how the needles are going up, catching the yarn, going back down and knitting the stitch. Okay, so that's what this is called. This is your V-cam. I didn't explain all this. I mean, there's going to always be lots of things I don't remember for every video. So
wait, then they said, and your row counter sold separately?
No, my row counter came with this machine. I know some machines, I think they are sold separately, but mine came with it, so I didn't have to buy it separately. Mine was the package that was a 2-cylinder package and no ribber when I first bought this. You don't need the ribber to start knitting on your circular sock machine. Some people want to buy it because the package deal might be a little less money in the long run, but I didn't go that option.
18 people watching.
All right, sorry, I had a drink of coffee. I took my weight off and my buckle because to hang the stitches, it's going to be easier to have your weight. So here's where I was hanging that buckle and my weight. So to hang your hem, it's like a double folded hem on a cuff of a sweater or a hat, maybe you're hand knitting. It's the same concept. So I'm going to go back to this first row, and I apologize if it's going to be hard to see. If I had like multiple camera angles, wouldn't that be awesome? Okay, so I'm going to go back. This is why contrasting yarn is really, really important.
What does hang mean?
What does hang mean? So I am taking this first row of stitches. You can see here is my waist yarn, which was orange. Oh, it's not going in focus. Sorry. Okay. My waist yarn was orange. It keeps focusing on my hand. My fishing line is, well, used to be bright yellow, and now I'm stuck. Don't wear like big bulky sweaters. You'll get stuck on your machine. My ring just got stuck. So the first row that I knit when I cast this tail on, I'm going to find that first purl bump, and I'm going to hang that on my first stitch, which is why I continue.
Good morning from Minnesota.
Good morning. This is why I continuously use the same stitch, the first stitch to remember, the first needle. And I'm going to go into every purl bump along that waist yarn and fishing line, and I'm going to hang that loop. Oh, it's really, my hands are keeping it out of focus. Okay, hold on. Let's see if I can. I don't know if that's going to be much better. Okay. I am using a phone. I don't know if that's the best idea. Maybe that'll be a Christmas present in the future. So these purl bumps here, this is that first row. I'm hanging those on every needle because that is what will secure my edge. So this is going to secure all my knitting. And when I take this off of this waist yarn and ravel cord, I won't have to do any finishing except for weaving in this end just a tiny little bit. Some people tuck it in when they're knitting. So.
Good morning from Michigan.
Michigan. Hello, Michigan. All right. And so we're just going to hang every stitch. Now, you won't be able to hang every stitch without having to crank forward a little bit. So let's remember, you'll be able to do about half, maybe a little more than half. Okay, so my hem of this sock is now going to be 20 rows tall and double thick. So that is the hung hem. I know there's lots of patterns out there that have folded hems. Maybe that's what people think about. They think about a folded hem. This is the same concept essentially. So now if you were to miss a stitch, say you missed a bump. I have definitely forgotten.
Amanda said, hello from Brunswick, Canada.
Ooh, hello.
I think that's how you're supposed to say it.
All right, well, thank you, Hazel. She is doing her best to read all the comments, so I told her I'm not going to be able to always look at the screen of my phone. So once you get around to about here, these needles are down under the cam. They're really hard to access. These ones you would never access. So what I need to do is I need to put the downward pressure, which is my weight, back on my bonnet. So the buckle goes on, and then you see this hole? That's where this hooks into, and it pulls it down. So you can see when I let that weight go, it really pulls down. Now, there's a pocket here because the downward pressure is on the waist yarn and not on this. So we're going to hold this with our fingers and crank through to the back, to the opposite side, okay? So I'm just going to lift this weight a little bit with my legs. My hands are definitely going to be in the way at this point. So I'm going to hold this tight over to the machine. Now I could, we'll have to remember that, okay, because the handle does go back just a little bit when I'm on that side, the weight of it. Okay, so I was talking about if you missed a loop. If you miss a loop and you realize it when you take it off, you can just catch that loop with a scrap piece of yarn and then weave in the ends to catch the loop, right? So you can easily do that. So you would just put a piece of waste yarn on a darning needle, put it through your loop that you missed, catch it, that way the stitches don't run. Also, I was talking about pulling the fabric over to the side. That is so I'm not stretching that loop out super far. That would all...
Carla said, hi Hazel, tried any good recipes lately?
Oh boy.
We made barbecue sauce.
You made barbecue sauce, yeah. I have not put out the video yet, but Hazel is enrolled in cooking classes. We're not going to talk about the name of the place because I'm not putting that much information out there. But she is enrolled in cooking classes.
I also make chocolate lava cake.
You made chocolate lava cake. Okay, so this last one sometimes can be a little hard to find. I pull that fishing line and I can find where it's like going through because it's a constant pattern, right? In, out, in, out, in, out. You can find the loop, and this is my last one, 64.
We need a cooking tutorial by Hayes.
Yeah. All right, so my handle I'm letting the weight go. It's all now got the downward pressure because the bonnet is hooked to this, and that's what's pulling down. But you can see this slack here. You want to make sure before you start cranking, anytime you stop and start, make sure that you pull this slack up. So my hand is going out of frame, but it's above the yarn, and I'm kind of pulling the slack up, and I'm slowly going forward to make sure that all my needles caught that yarn, right? So that's really important. Also, on this first row, when you hang it, you have 2 stitches on each needle. It can get a little tight. If your tension is too tight to start with, that row with 2 stitches is gonna be really tight to crank. So we're gonna crank. This is 1 full rotation, and it's now captured. Both of the double stitches are now 1 stitch again on my needles. So I do 120 rows for John's leg. So I'm gonna reset my counter before I do a full row of knitting. Yes.
It was like glitching on my screen.
It was glitching?
It went back though.
It went back. Okay. Thank you for letting me know. All right, so we're gonna just be cranking a lot right now. 120 rows. Yeah, that's true. More people? Oh boy. I'll take a pause break real quick. I'm not cranking super fast. You're seeing this in real time. I can crank faster than that, but you really don't want to. Also gonna have a drink of coffee real quick.
Oh, somebody asked, how many rows do you use for you and the kids?
So it depends on the height of the sock that you want, right? So if I want a tall sock, if I want a sock that's like really tall, I don't have, okay, here's an example. This is a ribbed sock that I've done. I don't know how many rows this is, but this is a decent size like sock that comes mid calf, right? Shorty socks, you're doing like 10 rows if you're doing shorties. I have some shorties on right now. Can't really see them, but I did 10 rows before I started. 5 rows. Sorry, I hung this little hem and I did 5 rows before I started my heel. So it depends on the length of sock that you want. Hazel likes really tall socks. Sometimes she wants shorter socks, but I think a lot of the socks I've made her have been pretty tall, haven't they? Yeah.
Medium.
Medium, yeah, kind of in the middle, like a crew sock.
Can you show them a blanket?
No, baby. This is the Patton's Croix. While I'm stopped here, I'll talk about this is the Patton's Croix socks. This is not the FX. The FX ones I find are much thicker. And this is the gray brown marl. So, and I have 4 balls of these because they're 50-gram balls. So let's keep going. When you're listening to your machine, once you know your machine better, you'll hear different noises it makes or shouldn't be making, and that might determine what you've done wrong, what you need to change, etc. We are going to have to do a yarn change. I don't want to run out of yarn in the middle of the heel, so we will change yarn before we start the heel of this sock. We're at 85. Now my weight is getting really close to the floor. Not really close yet, but I will have to move that up. I'm going to stop at 115 so I can do my color change.
You are using yarn off a cone. Do you hand wind the cones?
Yes. So you can buy yarn on cones. You can buy, this is a yarn pre-bought on a cone, active. But all my cones I've purchased from Erlbacher, and I wind them with a drill and a Swift. And I have a drill attachment. This goes on my cone, or my cone goes on this. It's a rubber stopper. And then I just put my yarn onto my cone from that. So, all right. We're at 107. But yes, and that's another thing about this machine, about the flatbed knitting machines. Your source of yarn, it needs to flow really well from your source. So if you're cranking from a ball of yarn.
Thanks for this live. I'm curious about something knitting, but pretty sure I'd get frustrated with it.
It can be very frustrating. So I'm not gonna lie, it can be very frustrating in the beginning. It took a long time for me to get to where I'm at. And I have said this, and I've told my little this many times, that when you're using a new tool, and this is a tool, new knitting needles are a new tool. Crocheting, if you've never crocheted, that's a new tool. You know, it's practice, and there's like a saying about you know, how many hours it takes to become like a master, right? I mean, this is hours of me doing this, and I have been frustrated. I have cursed and walked away and not come back to the machine for days. So yeah, it's I love this machine so much, and that is why I do what I do and show all these videos. I want everyone that owns one of these to love their machine and be so happy that they can use it, right? So if that's me showing the same sock over and over and over again, and you guys knitting along with me over and over again, that's how I feel. I'm so passionate about it. So let's go back to the source real quick though. If you have it in a ball form and you're trying to crank out of a bowl, you're I don't have a ball up here. It's gonna flop like all over the place in the bowl. So your tension from the source is going to be different, which is going to change the tension in your project every time. So you got to really be mindful of that. Some people I know do crank from cakes of yarn. It depends on how your ball winder makes the cakes. Some of them, it flows real nicely, but some it doesn't. I prefer a cone every time. All right, we're at 1:15, and I'm going to stop kind of here so you guys can see what I'm doing. I'm also going to move my weight up because it's almost at the floor, and I don't want to have to deal with that later. So let's move our weight up, meaning I'm going to pull the buckle up closer to the machine and hang the weight again. Okay, so I know I have enough yarn on this cone to get me pretty far, but I don't want to get messed up in the middle.
Have you knit anything else besides socks on your machine?
Yes.
She's made me dolls.
I've made dolls. I have a doll. Where'd the doll go?
I might have took it.
Oh, no, look, she's right here. I've made koozies. I've made arm warmers.
She has those underpants on.
I've made fingerless gloves. This is a koozie for a ball of yarn. You can make more than just socks, okay? You can do flat knitting on this and make panels. It takes time. I'm not very good at that yet, and it takes time doing it, right? So you can make doll hats on these machines, on these sizes. Okay, so what I've done is I cut my yarn and I've left a long loop. This is in hand knitting called a Russian join, but I call it a faux Russian join because in a real Russian join, you're taking that tail and weaving it into the yarn itself. This, we're just overlapping it and holding it.
Stitch marker holder.
Yes, I don't have a pouch down here. You can make little pouches. You can make all kinds of stuff. So the tail is here, so it's going to knit 2 pieces of yarn at one time, and you're going to have a loop. Okay? So I'm going to crank this forward to catch this loop, to catch this tail, okay? And I still have a loop. I'm going to take a new ball of yarn, put it in my machine.
In weaving, it's called a clasped weft join.
Yes, yes, a clasped weft join. That is correct. And it's all the same concept. I won't have to weave any tails in, which is awesome. So I'm taking this, and this is my new yarn, and I'm going to make a loop going the opposite direction. And I'm going to hold this. You're not going to see it because I'm going to be holding it up above, but I'm going to be holding this, and I'm going to crank forward until it all catches. And it is now caught, that tail. I don't have to do any weaving. I could snip this. Let's get to the 120, and we're going to start a heel. So I'm going to do the heel on the back of the machine. You can do it on the back. You can do it on the front. You can do it however you have your machine set up and oriented. Okay. So I'm doing a regular heel on this. I know they fit John really well. To do a deep heel, I have videos on that, but you would just lift less stitches. So I'm going to use my crescent tool. That's what this is called. And I'm going to lift all these needles out of work past my red mark, which is my half mark. And a heel and a toe are almost the same. There's little differences, and there's different ways to increase and decrease. So my way that I'm going to show you in this video is not the end-all be-all of ways to do this. Anything else? Nothing?
Not right now.
Okay. So you can't see the top of my machine, but I'm cranking to the back until it stops clicking. That means this last needle has knit fully and is not underneath of the V-cam anymore. Up on my mast, I'm putting my heel spring on. So the heel spring is... Did I lose connection too? Okay, I am so sorry. Sorry, people. This is the mast, and I just put my heel spring on. Okay, I'm not going to do that again. That was not acceptable. First live, yay! Okay, so... it fell in glory.
What is a heel spring?
Yeah, the heel spring holds tension on the yarn. So the spring up top has a weight connected to it, and the weight pulls on the yarn even harder than it normally does. It really doesn't have a lot of tension, much tension when you don't have the heel spring on. What that's going to do is when I crank this back, because I'm going to start going in short rows back and forth, this like around, just knitting these, it's going to keep tension on this yarn. So if I didn't have that heel spring on,
26 people watching.
All right, I'm going to take the heel spring off real quick so you guys can see what I'm talking about. I'm not going to knit because I don't want to mess it up. If I don't have that heel spring on, do you see what that's doing? There's no tension in that yarn. So I'm going to bring this back. I'm going to put the heel spring on. And when the heel spring is on, it's pulling the yarn up, pulling this tension. Now I have the half weight heel spring on, which sometimes I have to give it a little hand tensioning. Not a lot. I just make sure it's going to knit. Okay, but I didn't also lift that needle. So I need to lift one to decrease on this side. So everything we do on one side, we're going to mimic and mirror on the other side.
So cool.
So we lifted one. We're going to crank around. This is our first short row. Okay, stops clicking, lift one on the yarn side and crank around. Okay, lift one on the yarn side, crank around. These are short rows. In hand knitting, you pretty much do short rows. It's the same concept. Eventually, I'm going to get the pocket of fabric here, and I'm going to need to put my weights that are called my heel forks on, but I can go another row or two. You'll notice when this yarn here doesn't go down and it's sitting high up on the needle, that's when you definitely need to put your weights in. Okay. Yarn is on this side. We're decreasing one on this side. Again, this is not the end all be all on how to do your increases or decreases. I'm going to put my weights in. This is the weight. This is the fork. I have 3 of them. One goes right in the middle. One goes under the working needles on this side, and one goes under the working needles on the other side. Okay. I always do that before I manipulate my needles so I remember. So now I'm going to lift one and crank. Lift one and crank. We're going to a target. I just talked about my marks on my machine. It's 1/3 of half the stitches. So this is 64, half is 32, and then I split that into 3s. Okay? If you have a 60 cylinder, it's real easy. 1/3 of 30 is 3, or 1/3 of 30 is 10. Gosh, Hazel, help me with fractions. Okay, so I have my marks here in black. Meaning when I stop doing my short rows, everything within here is going to be my heel. That's the width of my heel. Okay, so lift one, crank around. Lift one, crank around. So I'm still decreasing. This is going to be my last decrease on this side because I'm lifting the target needle that's in the black marks. Okay, now this is where it changes a little bit. I'm going to move my weight up just a little. This is going to decrease, but I do the 1 up, 2 down method. So 1 up to decrease a stitch, 2 down on the opposite to increase 2 stitches. So I'm increasing 1 stitch in this row. And this is how I'm going to continue the pattern.
Do you use the 64 to make most of your socks, or do you switch them out for different sizes?
Most of my socks I do on the 64. If I want to do DK weight socks, I do that on my 48. I have one person that I make socks for that I use my 80.
Chris?
No, Poppy.
Oh.
So, yarn is on this side, so decrease 1, increase 2. 1 up, 2 down. Crank around. And this is the method we're going to go until we're back at our half marks. Or if you did a D-peel back at the, wherever you did your D-peel at. Up 1, down 2. Okay, see how the yarn is not going down all the way? Wish my phone would focus better here. Trying. Okay. I need to move my weight because it's not pulling that down. The proper down. This is where most people struggle. And moving your, I learned I moved my weights a lot in the beginning. I've gotten better. I don't have to move them as much. That downward pressure, there's a pocket of short rows being made here, and you always have to make sure your weights are properly distributing the weight downward in this section, okay? So 1 up and 2 down. We're gonna just keep continuing this pattern. 1 up, 2 down, okay? 1 up, 2 down. Some people don't use their tips of their fingers because, well, you can poke holes in your fingers. I know lots of people that use the tool. I don't use it. 1 up, 2 down. 1 up, 2 down. I know the next question soon after this heel is going to be, how do you know how many rows to knit for the foot of the person you're making a sock for? Oh, well, that's been a tricky one, but I have bought charts off of a seller on Etsy, and they have charts for every cylinder. They're only a couple dollars. I'll link it. It's linked actually in every one of my cranking videos, this person's Etsy shop. And it tells, you'll measure your tension. So because I did my leg first, it's real easy for me to measure the tension and how many rows per inch I'm getting, okay? So 1 up, 2 down.
How long have you been using your CSM?
CSM. I got it in 2020, I believe. Maybe 2021, and I can't remember. So even though I'm at my half mark, I'm still going to lift one because these two still have to go down. These are the last 2 that need to go back into knitting. So I'm going to knit that row. Now this is where it's going to change to go back knitting in the round again. So I'm still going to lift because I did that over here. And essentially I can put 2 down. I'm now past my mark, but I'm going to stop here and put all my needles down. Okay, so I'm going to crank to the front. Okay, now you want to put all your needles down. Make sure all your latches are open, right? Use the pad of your finger to kind of feel and push them down. You are not smushing these needles all the way down. If you smush them all the way down, you can potentially close the latch. Now you see these are pretty far down. Oh, this is not, I might have to figure out the focus on my camera for this, for lives. These needles are pretty far down, and these ones are a little higher because I didn't push them all the way down. You can potentially close your latches though. So I'm going to go just around to here because I want to take my tension, my heel spring off. Because if I don't, the tension here...
Is it possible to knit socks from the toe up on the CSM?
Yes, it is. You can.
How do you avoid the heel hole?
The heel hole? Some people, like... I get a little bit of a heel hole with this increase, decrease. You can see it here a little bit. You can take the purl bump of the stitch below and hang it like that. And if I'm going to do that there, I should do it here. So 1 bump below. Oh, it might be really hard to hang. Oh, we got it. Okay. And that will help close that up. So you can do that. I'm going to reset my counter because now I'm going to crank the foot and I need that to be pretty accurate, okay? So what we can do now, well, let me crank, I'm going to do like 30 rows because I know I'm going to need to go past 30 anyway for my husband's sock. So let's get 30 rows in. All right, we're at 30. I'm going to stop at the back of the machine. I'm going to take these weights off real quick just to show you what I'm going to do. Because, well, Hazel done stole my ruler, but it's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure.
Can you take off the extra weights after doing the heel or no?
No, you want to leave those on until you're able to get your buckle over the heel. If you can't get your buckle over the heel when you take them off, you can't, you have to leave them on. That pocket of fabric will definitely raise up and you'll lose the tension. So you leave them on. I left them on till 30 and technically it's going to be tough to get that over, but I'm going to try. If not, I'll put my weights on. So what I'm doing here is a gauge swatching, okay? And I have a giant ruler here, but I'm going to put this here and I'm going to count roughly how many rows I have per inch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, it's about 10. You could measure it at a couple spots, but your tension should be accurate. So if I have 10 rows per inch, I have, here's what this chart kind of looks like. Okay, it has men's and women's. It goes by the shoe size. So for John, at 10 rows per inch, I am going to crank 68 rows. So 68 row foot, which let me write that down because I did a 120 leg, 120 and 60, what did I say? 68? 68. If you feel like you're not quite...
I have a question.
Okay.
What are these socks for?
Daddy.
Oh. I was just wondering.
So I could technically go between the 9 and the 10. It's 57 to 68. That's kind of a jump if you ask me, but maybe not really. Because you're losing a row per inch. So that's 10 rows, you know. So I'm going to do 56, because this is a little looser, it feels like. I'm going to do more like a 62. 63. Let's do 63. For this. So I wrote it down so I can remember to do the same for the second sock. So this is not going to go all the way up. I got to put my heel weights back in. So I'm going to put my heel weights back in because I really don't want to lose that tension. So I'm just going to put it the same way they would have been on the machine.
30 people watching.
What? 30 people? All right. We're at 30. We're getting to 63 rows. Okay. And actually, this tension, it looks a little loose. It's more loose than what I normally would make. Stop. But when I did my gauge swatch before I came on the video, I had to loosen it or else it wasn't going to crank properly. All right, so we're at 61, 62, 63. Now, if I want my toes, the toe of the sock, when you're making a sock and you're closing the toe and you're doing the short rows, my Kitchener, you're doing the tube. Oh, that's so hard to see. Okay. You're cranking the tube, you stop, and you're doing short rows, and then you're increasing your rows back up to the full amount of the cylinder. So you're Kitchenering, depending on if you do it on the front of your machine or the back of your machine, you're Kitchenering either across the top of the toes or underneath the bottom of the toes. If you want your stripes to continue, like this one, you can see the stripes continued, and then here. So the top of the foot, the stripes don't continue properly. Here. If you do the short rows on this side and they go here, your stripes would continue on the top of the foot, and then you would close on the bottom of your foot. John doesn't care, so I can do it either way. So we're just gonna make the toe on the back.
I need to use the bathroom.
Go ahead, go use the bathroom. I don't have a moderator for a moment. I need to crank a little bit more because this last needle was under the V-cam. Okay, a toe is always half-half. If you don't do half-half for a toe, you can't Kitchener across half the stitches of the cylinder. I hope that makes sense. I had the comments on here. Top chat, live chat, all messages. Oh, here we go. Okay, messages are back. I was able to see them on my phone for a minute, but then let's see if I can raise you guys a little bit differently. All right, let's try that. So it's the same concept. I need to crank to the back. It knit the last stitch, and I'm putting the heel spring back on. I guess it could be called a heel / toe spring, but it's a tension spring. It's a tensioning spring. So I'm going to do the same decreases, lifting one on the yarn side and cranking around. Eventually, I will have to move my bottom weight up and steal my weights back so I can do the toe. Okay. Lift one on the yarn side to decrease. Lift one on the yarn side to decrease. Lift one on the yarn side. I don't think so. Lift one. Lift one.
Oh, yes. Do you have a video where you knit the toe first and hang it so you don't have to kitchener it closed?
I don't think I have a video for that. There are videos. I'll try to remember a link, a video below this. Erlbacher has one, I'm pretty sure, for a toe up. I have failed miserably every time I've done that. I have started a sock toe up, but I still kitchenered it. Kitchener, yeah. Okay. We're gonna lift one on the yarn side and crank around. So I'm sorry I don't have a video. I know there are videos though, out there for that. I know. I have failed miserably every time trying to do that, and it's all about the tension, because you have to be able to hang the stitches from the toe onto your machine after you crank your short rows, and I've not been able to get that. That is on my list of things I want to practice, because I would love to make it. Okay.
Thank you for sharing your knowledge and experience of the CSM. I'm new to the craft and have been cranking socks, tubes, and hand knitting the heels, toes, and cuffs.
Yeah, I did that too. I cranked a ton of tubes, and then I got really tired of putting my heels and toes in, and I ripped all the tubes out and forced myself to learn how to do it on the machine. But I get it. I know the Knit Girls have a machine. I don't think I've ever seen them do a heel or toe on their machine. They crank tubes all the time and insert the toes. Okay, so I'm in Maryland. I just want to put this out there. There's a crankin' coming in Crofton, Maryland, and it's April 5th, I believe. It's called the Krabby Crankin', and I am going there. It's going to be at a brewery in Crofton. If you look on, there's like 3 or 4 cranking pages on Facebook, and they probably have it listed there. So I'm going to keep decreasing because I got to get to my target marks. Now, you can do ergonomical toes on this, where you would decrease on one side.
Step 1, crank tubes. Step 2, learn how to do the entire sock on the machine.
Heck yeah. And you'll get there. Again, it's practice. It's practice. I had a tube of yarn that it was like an more inexpensive yarn, and all I did was fail at cranking short rows, and the whole tube just looked like this lumpy bumpy like snake thing. It was funny, but it got me where I wanted to be. Because it is really frustrating if you crank like a hem and a leg, and then you get to the heel and you flub it and you drop stitches, and then yeah, it's not terrible to at that point I restart, because trying to fix where you dropped increases and decreases is not fun. It's doable, but it's not fun. So yarn is on this side, and I'm going to decrease on that side. I'm going to have to move my weights maybe soon. One more on this side. I'm at my target on this side, so I'm going to decrease one. All right, let me move my weights a little, because I am just a little bit off. Not off, but the distribution wasn't below the needles in work anymore. This is the last one. This is the target on this side. So I'm going to down 2 on the other. 1 up, 2 down. This method is in the Erlbacher manual, I believe, and I just like it. There are other methods. There's the one that Sue made, and it's called the suicide heel, and it's a certain way you're increasing and decreasing, or I think it's more for decreasing, not so much for increasing, or it's more for increasing, not for decreasing. 1 up, 2 down. So like I said, this is not the end all be all.
Amanda said, what yarn is your favorite to knit on your machine?
I mean, I have cranked a lot of Patton's Croy, a lot of it. For a while there, I was cranking a lot of Knit Picks Felici. But then, you know, it's really hard because independent yarn dyers source their yarn from all different places. So you can get 75-25s, 80-20s, you know, 75-25s where it has maybe cashmere in it. So they're all a little bit different. And I like cranking all yarns. I have some yarn that's 90-10. It's 90 wool, 10 silk. That's fun to crank. I mean, you have to find the right tension, because if you don't have the right tension, any yarn can be a big pain in the butt to crank. So it's all about finding that. And I have seen many, many, many posts on the cranking pages where people are like, I can't get my machine to turn. And you can see the tension in what they had on their machine is so tight. And the first thing most of us tell them is you have to change your tension, your tension. And that's right here. I didn't show that. This is your tension. When you turn this knob, when I turn it this way, my V-cam moves up and makes these stitches, because this is your stitch length, essentially, makes this shorter. If you go this way and crank this way, it pushes your V-cam down. I can't really show that. It pushes it down, making the stitch length longer. When I'm using this yarn, I am 2 stitches longer than my, I say average. It's just a comfort zone for me. I know that 43 clicks from the top of my bolt, everybody's bolt is going to have different amount of threads. So when it's flush to the top and the one is facing out and I click it 43 times, that's my sweet spot. And I go from there, whether I tension it more or loosen it. Okay. So I suggest everybody knowing from flush to your sweet spot and what number is facing outwards and having a sticky because I use that all the time. It's just really helpful. This is my last pass going this direction. The toes are different because with the heel, you manipulate these a little bit more, but on this side, we don't want to do any more manipulation because this is half cranked from this mark forward and this mark back. You want to have even amounts of stitches on your front and your back to Kitchener them closed, because if not, and you have off numbers, the Kitchener will be off because it's an even stitch count. So I'm not going to do anything on this side. I'm going to leave all my needles in how they are after I cranked. And on this side, so normally I would do 1 up and 2 down. No 1 up, 2 down, and this is your last crank with your project yarn. Okay, so I've cranked. I'm going to go to my yarn source. I'm going to pull a little bit out. You want to make sure you have plenty to Kitchener with. I always pull way more than I need. And then you take it out of your carrier. The last stitch knit is the first stitch on this side of the cylinder. You're going to tuck your tails in. Okay. Now you're going to take a new piece of scrap yarn, something that's good contrast, because you want to be able to see what you're Kitchenering. Move that back out of the way. You probably can't see it. I have a little bucket of all my balls of yarn. And I just reuse them. I have cones, but I reuse these until they're not reusable anymore. So I'm going to tuck this down in my machine. I'm going to place the yarn between the last stitch knit and the stitch out of work. And I'm going to bring my yarn carrier not all the way around because I don't want these to start moving. So I'm going to put my yarn in. Now, if you don't have a slotted yarn carrier, you would have to go in and through and this way, snaking it. I'm going the opposite way because I have the slotted yarn carrier. I am going to put my heel spring on, but I'm not going to let go of the yarn. I'm still holding the yarn with my right hand, and now I'm holding it in the cylinder with my other hand. I could put a clip, but I feel better that I know I'm holding it. Slowly crank a few stitches to the front. Slowly. Okay, you want to make sure all of your latches are open. Push them back down into work because we're going to start going back in the round, and these stitches are going to Kitchener to that last row of these stitches. That's how you close it. Okay, so you have to put waste yarn on so you don't lose the stitches and they start to unravel. Okay, they were all open. Slowly cranking around. Okay, I'm going to take my tension off now because I don't need it. I like it on for that first row. I don't know why. Just a habit. Not all habits are good, I guess. And my waste yarn balls are approximately 13 to 15 rows. Okay. So, And I do always try to start and stop, even with the waste yarn, in the same place. Pull that in. You're going to tuck it in. You're going to hold your weight, because when you crank this, it's going to fall to the floor if you don't hold it. Hold your weight. Take it off. Okay? I'm going to unhook my big weight, and I'll move my camera, and I'll show you guys the ravel cord. Sorry, I have a mess all behind here. Don't mind me. Okay, so all my weights. Huh?
You are the mess.
I am the mess? Thanks, Hayes. I appreciate that. All right, moderator. My buckle. And here is the bonnet that we were hanging the weight on from the beginning, and waste yarn. Gosh. We're not talking about snacks, Hazel. All right, so the tails are on this side. I'm going to go to the opposite side. I'm going to grab a leg. Okay, and you're going to pull it out. I want to keep these lives between 30 minutes and an hour when I do them. I don't want them to be overwhelmingly long.
55 minutes.
Yeah, I just don't want it to be overwhelmingly long. And voila. Now, remember we talked about if you missed a stitch, you would notice it now, kind of. All you do is, like I said, take a darning needle, catch it, weave the ends in of the little waste yarn. This is the only tail I have to weave in, and then with the toe. So here's my hung hem, my double folded hem, a very long leg. There's the heel, and I did pull those stitches up for you guys. So it closed up that hole a little bit. There's other ways to do that too. Like I said, not end all be all on everything I'm telling you. The foot, and what I like to call the Muppet mouth. Okay, sorry. It just reminds me of a Muppet. So this toe is on the bottom. I could have done it on the other side and it would have been the top. And then you'll Kitchener these together. I have a video on that. I have a whole playlist of cranking videos, and that is when I did Socktober, I did a Kitchener video. So, all right, guys, thank you everybody for watching. I appreciate everything so much. From everybody's comments are always so nice and wonderful.
Since we're going to end, any questions? Type it in the chat.
Type it in the chat. Yeah, or suggestions. If I do another live, what do you guys want to see?
Me.
They want to see you.
Okay.
Thank
you so much.
Thank
you.
you.
For the live. Heart.
I love you.
Your Socktober playlist has really helped me learn new things. Great job, Madeline Hazel. Yeah.
Oh, bunny fish. That's Heather.
Oh.
I think, right? Is that, yeah.
Thank you, Hayes. I don't like going by the name of Hayes, though. Thank you, Hazel. Thank you, Aquila. I love to see you salvage edge at the beginning.
Any kind of selvage edge?
This gave me the confidence to try this out. Thank you.
Like
Great teamwork. Thank you so much.
Like a E-wrap selvage edge. There's a book on selvage edge that I bought from Kathy Roletter. I'll have to show that in another video. Yeah, we can do edges. We'll do selvage edges. That'll be one of the next videos. I'll put it on my list of CSM demos. I'll make a live list. Huh? You were spamming the heart? Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Everybody have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you all soon.
A video intention.
Ooh, all right. Yeah, we could do that. Do it live. All right. Bye, guys. I don't know how to turn this off. Ah! Stop. There we go.